Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy MKS here, back here with another video. As you can probably see, I'm wearing my Dyslexia Organisation Kenya top. I think it says Brim Adventures. Brim Adventures, that's it, yeah. So I think this is when they did a walking tour to raise money for dyslexia in Kenya. So my friend from Kenya actually gave me this top. Or maybe my mum bought it off, I'm not sure. But anyway, I know I've mentioned them before on this channel. They're called the Rare Gem School, or you can check out Dyslexia Organisation Kenya if you're interested in supporting them. So please check out their website and their YouTube channel and stuff like that and find out information about them. And you can contact the founder, Nancy herself, if you wish. And all the details are on there. If you Google Rare Gem School Kenya, I think you have to be quite specific on Google. But yeah, you can check them out on Google and YouTube or other forms of social media, as I say, the Rare Gem School Kenya. And yeah, you can ask any questions or find out more about it if you want. You can read about it or whatever if you like. I like to sort of just inform people and put the word out there, and then they can miss me as a middleman, just go straight to ask Nancy about what sort of help they need. Like me, I want to raise some money for them to get PCs, laptops and things like that. I wasn't actually planning to say that at the beginning of the video, but I thought I'd just mention it as I have this t-shirt now, as it's the 23rd, and I think of like fundraising. I was watching the England versus Brazil game, and I was thinking, I was stuck in two minds really, and part of me regrets that I decided not to do a live stream of that game. It's difficult when you live with other people, because especially if you do it live, because they can just walk in the room and interrupt your stream and things like that. But I actually had the house to myself for quite a while. Also, I wanted to hear the commentary, but I was stuck in two minds. I thought, if people do find that interesting, if it ups my views, and get my channel, if I could get my channel monetized, then I'd be able to support the charitable causes I wish to do so, or even the selfish cause benefiting the town football, which I normally like to mention first. Like I say, look after number one. Anyway, sorry, I'm probably waffling quite a lot, but as I say, this is part two of my quest to encourage POC and anti-imperialists to support SA, i.e. South Africa. I hope you like it, and I'm going to try and stick to the theme of like asking questions of the audience. So, for instance, like, would you be happy to support South Africa as a POC, person of colour? Like, should Black, Asian, mixed race like myself, and even Native American, Latino, and Hispanic, and maybe even Jewish people, maybe Jewish people who are not Zionist, perhaps, because of South Africa's position on Israel and Palestine, should they support? Should all the other people support South Africa, like let's say anti-imperialists and anyone who classes themselves as a person of colour, POC? In my view, they should, but I'm prepared to listen to and read alternative views. I suppose the main people I would want to support in South Africa would be the POC in South Africa itself. I'd say Black, what they call coloured, which are mixed race, and also Asian, and I suppose more diverse areas or people and organisations and whatnot that promote diversity. So I suppose the white people in those groups I would wish to support, but just in case, I wouldn't want to really support the area where I don't know if they would like people like me who are mixed race. So so that's why I would rather support the areas which are diverse, or actually called POC. But yeah, I think that covers everything for the intro. And here goes. These are ideas, pointers, thoughts, plans, or whatever you want to call them, goals, dreams, or whatever, or questions in this case, number 11 to 20. So here goes. So number 11, how can people, such as anti-imperialists, support South African projects, inventions, inventors, ideas people, entrepreneurs, investors, sports stars, and South Africans generally with their ambition, and South Africans in all sorts of industries, as I say, inventors, ideas people, investors, business people / entrepreneurs, businesses, and that kind of thing. Like, could we raise their profile? Could we help to buy from those nations? And if we support South Africa as people of colour, POC, I'd say as an acronym, and for a call, sorry, not neurodiverse or anti-diverse, what's the word? Anti-imperialist, that's what I'm sorry. If we support them, would that encourage others to invest in South Africa. Another thing I was thinking of is like I often have like 11 as like changes, but also and innovation, ideas, inventions, and things like that. But again, how can we support South Africa in terms of its innovation as well, just generally? And what should South Africa change is another thing I thought of. What, if anything, should South Africa change? What could they do to improve? And I suppose improvements require change. Another thing I was going to say, sorry, I jumped from point to point, I apologise, but is what I was going to say is 11 also reminds me of walking. My stepdad used to say, Michael uses, i.e. me, relies on taxi number 11. Some people didn't know what that meant, and he said like it means walking everywhere. So I used to walk pretty much everywhere, not literally obviously, but not all the way to London or something like that, but or to any other city. But I used to walk quite a lot, like, and sometimes I still do, but I've cut back a lot, and it doesn't seem to help anyway with my diet. But I wonder about South Africans in exercise and sports, and I imagined. I thought about if there's a new news report. There may have already been one on SABC, South Africa's Broadcasting Corporation or whatever, or any South African news channel or whatever, news service or whatever, or even South Africans discussing amongst themselves about how to get people doing more exercise if necessary, having better diets, and things like that. But also I'd love to read from and hear from South Africans about what sort of things they would like to change, like for instance, how could they cut crime, tackle poverty, bring people together, build bridges, encourage investment, and things like that. Anyway, moving on, I think that covers everything for point number 11 because I have gone on longer than planned for that point. I know I covered a lot of points in point number 11, so I hope people will be able to answer those questions as well as possible. Come to think of it, I suppose it would be hard to remember all those questions. But anyway, number 12, how can we motivate and inspire South Africa, and what are some positive and motivational and success stories from South Africa? Number 13, once again, what are some of these issues, challenges, struggles, and things like that facing South Africa? And I suppose I have my own fears about whether South Africa can prove its critics wrong. I think, again, as POC and anti-imperialists, it would be great to see South Africa do well, because it could say to the racists or basically the anti-black people, those who are racist against black people specifically, it could say, or even people of colour generally, it could say, look what we can achieve and we can work together, and that kind of thing. Number 14, how can they solve problems? And number 15, I'm not sure if I mentioned this in point number 11 as I was jumping from point to point, but well, I think I did briefly touch on it, but could we actually help to encourage investment if we support them? Because people will see like companies like Microsoft, Apple, IBM, Dell, and not just in technology, but Nike and so many others, McDonald's and others. Well, I suppose with the boycott of such, maybe not, but many companies around the world, could there be a marketing drive generally by anti-imperialists, which say, dare I say, and I do often mention I do want to stay neutral, I don't want to offend anyone, but could it be that they say, again, I just want to put the questions out there, make people think, and I'd love to read and hear from different answers. And I don't say there's any right or wrong answer necessarily, but as I say, freedom of speech and freedom of expression, could it be that companies could be encouraged to divest from nations that are involved in war, like Israel, or maybe even make peace pay? So maybe like the BDS campaign could encourage companies to invest in South Africa, companies like BlackRock, Schwab Corp, McDonald's, Microsoft, and so many others. And I suppose that could be like hashtag please make peace pay. I like to be extra polite, so I add the please. But yeah, so this would be a campaign to make peace pay, as the name suggests. So one of the things that inspired me to think about encouraging investment in South Africa, one of the things is that in the past, when there was apartheid, there was a divestment from South Africa to sort of punish and go against the apartheid system and like try and challenge it. So I wonder if there could be like a sort of opposite to that, which talks about how to instead encourage investment into South Africa and supporting South African projects, because it basically to promote diversity and show what showcase what black people and people of colour generally can do, and what Africa can do, and things like that. I also hope to challenge some of the xenophobia that happens in South Africa against other African nations, many of whom supported South Africa during its fight against apartheid. Also, I hope to see what I can do to help, or what people could do. In fact, I'm going to ask you as a question: what do you think we could do to help South Africa to achieve its ambitions as a nation? So it's the country itself, the country's itself's ambition, in better English. So it would be interesting if Ramaphosa talked about what he wants South Africa to achieve, how big he wants the economy to grow, and things like that, and see if POC, anti-imperialists generally can support such goals and ambitions for the nation as well as individuals, and how they can help to lift many people out of poverty, improve their quality of life, both financially and just generally, again, like in terms of health, the benefits of walking, exercise, and things like that. I know people in South Africa play a fair amount of sports like football and things like that, but maybe there's even more. Maybe they do a lot of walking anyway, but I think it's worth asking, like, do people do enough walking and things like that? Number 16, what are the best ways to just generally support South Africa and support their quality of life? I suppose many people would have different answers to that. Like religious people might say spiritual or religious sort of things. Some might say not chasing materialism. Some might say having a stronger economy. Some might say even getting rich or whatever, and that kind of thing. And so there's lots of different views that people might have on that. Number 17, can you imagine South Africa achieving a lot and becoming a first world country, maybe even becoming a superpower, and working with other nations across Africa and Asia as well, and the global south or whatnot? And what is the role, or what are the roles of South Africa in the BRICS? What could they be, and how could those roles be expanded, perhaps? And what sort of, I mentioned before in part one, like what sort of events could they host, whether that's sporting or political or business-wise or investment-wise. And something I was going to say in point number 11, but again, I thought that point went on a bit too long, so I moved on. Is that in the past, Nike, the head of Nike in South Africa, used a racial slur that begins with K, I think, and it's the equivalent to the N word, but in South Africa. So it's a word they use for black people in South Africa, and quite a few people use it against the black South Africans. And so there was protests against Nike, but I think that sort of South Africa was cutting off its nose despite its fate, as they say in the UK. I don't know if other people use that saying, but in other words, well, they were like shooting themselves in the foot in a way, because I can understand why they did that, but in a way, kicking companies out will decrease investment. So maybe they could have replaced that head with a CEO who's a person of colour, or a pro-diversity person, or someone who they feel is more ethical. But I think they shouldn't have kicked Nike out, because they should try and encourage as many companies to come into South Africa as possible, because that means more investment and jobs and opportunities and things like that. But I'd love to know what you think about that. Would you agree with me or not? Number 18, what are some positives and success stories and that sort of thing about South Africa? What are some things that you love about South Africa, or what sort of things give you hope for the future of South Africa? I hope you can find some of those things. What, if anything, gives you hope for South Africa? As I say, number 19, how can we support South African software developers, especially those of colour, especially black South African software developers? And number 20, how can we support South Africans in STEM, again, especially black people in South Africa in STEM, science, tech, engineering, and structural maths, respectively, or other areas of empowerment, like making artificial intelligence, being involved in artificial intelligence, and building apps and websites and things like that. And what do you think are the biggest areas which I think STEM would be the biggest areas, but also like running businesses and things like that would be just as big, if not bigger, perhaps. But I'd love to know what you think would be the biggest areas potentially to benefit South Africa as a nation, and of course its people. Anyway, I am out. Peace and love.